I wish the Ukrainian community well in this important rally today and pledge continued support from the Liberal Party. I will now ask Mr. John Valentine, Coordinator of the Catholic Nations Council, to address us.
Chairman, Dr. Catley, Senator Hill, Mr. Rand, Mr. Gilfillan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The last few years have witnessed incredible changes. Eastern Europe has at long last upholds Ukraine's vital independence by recognizing its government in Kiev. Any future violations of her borders will be rightly condemned as blatant external interference. This is why, much though we here today applaud America's role in defending the free world during the post-war period, we must disagree profoundly with President Bush's reported powers from the consent of the government that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. Laying its foundations on such principles and organising its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
Big brothers, and for 74 years our people had to suffer the tyranny and dictatorial rule of Soviet Empire, which at last is now falling apart as the Soviet republics are now marching towards democracy. And on August 24th, 1991, following unsuccessful coup by the communist hardliners, Ukraine declared her full independence from the USSR. And the day after, on August 25th, Belarus also declared her independence. Last week, we were at this very same place, rejoicing and supporting us. We have gathered here to support in the Australian government for recognition of the independence of Ukrainian Republic and to establish full diplomatic relationship. We Belarusians do hope that Australian government also will recognize independence of Belarus.
Australian citizens of Ukrainian origin who are assembled here today join with the people of Ukraine in celebrating Ukraine's declaration of independence as proclaimed by the Ukrainian Parliament in Kyiv on August 24, 1991. We call upon the Ukrainian Parliament to begin implementing all the articles of the Declaration of Independence as soon as possible. We appeal to the Australian Government to recognise Ukraine's independence, to establish diplomatic relations with the Ukrainian Government, to explore mutually beneficial trade relationships. All of us here present, as in duty bound, offer our humble prayer.
Thank you, Adelaide. Slava Naviki. And on behalf of the Association of Ukrainians in South Australia, I'd like to thank all the parliamentary members, all the members of the
They want independence from the Soviet Union and diplomatic relations with Australia.
Ukraine was forcibly annexed by Russia 71 years ago. Since that time, Ukrainians say they've lived under a reign of terror with attempts to wipe out all local culture, including religion, education and language.
All people who dared to voice their opposition to the communist regime were shot, simply shot.
Ukraine is the biggest republic in the USSR after Russia. In fact,
Ukraine was incorporated into the Soviet Union in 1920. But when the Ukrainian parliament declared independence last month, the blue and yellow flag once again replaced the red flag and all it stood for.
Exploited and persecuted almost to the point of spiritual extinction, so thought the oppressors, Ukrainian people once again arose to claim their God-given right to be masters in their own house.
A succession of speakers told the cheering crowd the federal government should formally recognise Ukraine and establish diplomatic relations. But federal member Bob Catley read a message from Prime Minister Hawke saying the time is not yet right.
That as with the recognition of the Baltic states, Australia will be among the first to recognise Ukraine in the event of its complying with these international law guidelines.
Those guidelines include the passing of next month's referendum on independence. But when it came time to sing the national anthem, there was little doubt in the hearts of those present that the referendum will be strongly supported.
Slava Ukraini!
George Bush has taken a political gamble